Hello everyone, my name is Joanne Lennon. I'm one of the product marketing managers here at Avaya Networking, and I'm very excited to talk about how you can win deals with video surveillance. This is an emerging opportunity for our networking products, and as you will hear, video surveillance is going through a massive market transition, and Avaya is currently uniquely positioned with a solution that solves real-world pain points and that is available today. So the agenda for this session is first we'll look at market trends. It's important to understand the background and why this industry is going through such a major transition, and how it opens up not only a market space for Avaya, but for you, our partners. I'll talk about the important role that the IP network plays in this transition, and why Avaya offers the best network for IP video surveillance. Finally, I'll close by highlighting some real-life customer use cases and testimonials. So this slide is pretty self-explanatory. The key point is that video surveillance is in the headlines practically on a daily basis. It's a booming market, and it really is a topic that is top of mind for security organizations in many verticals around the world. So as I mentioned previously, video surveillance is going through a huge transition. Similar to how we all went through the transition from digital to IP handsets a number of years ago, video surveillance is currently undergoing the same transition from analog-based cameras to IP cameras. The reason is that IP cameras offer higher image resolution and significantly greater flexibility. Analysts predict that 2014 will mark the tipping point, where revenue from IP-based cameras will outpace revenue from analog-based cameras. So as you can see, this transformation is just now kicking into high gear. And any time there's any type of market transition, it creates opportunity. And the opportunity with video surveillance is huge. It's predicted to be a $20.5 billion market globally by the end of 2015. And this growth is happening everywhere. It ranges from 41% growth in EMEA to 54% growth in Asia Pacific, with North America coming in the middle at 48%. We're also seeing the growth happening across multiple verticals. Not surprisingly, government is the largest segment and is experiencing the highest growth, and that's followed by retail, banking, and transportation. The transition to IP is also causing a major disruption within the current ecosystem. So the diagram on the right illustrates a typical end-to-end video surveillance system. It comprises video surveillance cameras, so these could be analog cameras, digital cameras, or hybrid of both, analog and digital. You have the video management software, or VMS, which is the software that enables remote storing and real-time analytics of the captured data. And then you have your monitoring screens, where you can actually monitor the surveillance footage. So as you can see, there's many different components to a video surveillance system, and this translates into a number of different vendors within the ecosystem that all play a very important role. There are the surveillance camera vendors. These are vendors such as Axis, Panasonic, Sony, Pelco. You have the storage vendors, vendors such as EMC, NetApps, and Dell. VMS vendors such as Milestone and Genetec. And finally, the security integrators, SIs, and they actually have the hardest and most important job because they are responsible for making all the different pieces work together. And some of the large SIs are vendors such as Johnson Controls, Honeywell, ASG, and ADI Americas. So the shift to IP is changing the role of many of these vendors. And what they're seeing is that increasingly they're having to become more networking savvy. And you can see at the bottom of this slide a quote from ADI Americas, where they say that they're seeing a continued need to assist in the networking side of the deployment of video surveillance. A large portion of the issues we see in the field are no longer product related, but are network related or storage related. One of the other key points I want to highlight is that in terms of the ecosystem, Avaya is growing our partnerships with all of these vendors, with the camera vendors, the VMS vendors, the storage vendors, and the SIs to help them ensure high quality, high performing video surveillance solutions for their customers. So what does this mean and why is it important to Avaya? Well, with this transition to IP, the network is becoming increasingly important. It's really becoming center stage in the video surveillance ecosystem. Irrespective of how expensive a surveillance camera is or how many megapixels of resolution it has, if the network has insufficient bandwidth or is not optimized for video, performance suffers. It's the underlying IP network that determines how effective a video surveillance system is. And the great thing for you, our partners, is that you're already ahead of the game. You understand this transition to IP because you've lived through it with voice, and many of you understand video. You know that real-time IP video is the most difficult application to run over a data network. And it's got very stringent requirements in terms of low latency, high bandwidth, there's high availability requirements. And with video surveillance, one of the additional burdens that's being placed in the network is the requirement for multicast. In the old days of video surveillance, we would typically have a single video stream being sent to a single monitoring station. Today, many companies have to stream to multiple monitoring stations, so the overall environment is becoming a lot more complex and placing much more demands in the network. So this is creating a problem for CSOs and CIOs. In the past, the Chief Security Officer was responsible for physical security, everything from badge scan doors to video surveillance. And the Chief Information Officer, the CIO, was responsible for networking security. With the transition to IP and surveillance traffic taking its place in the IP network, what we're seeing is that the responsibilities of the CSO and the CIO are merging. The Chief Security Officer now needs to be aware of the IP network, and the Chief Information Officer now needs to consider the implications of video surveillance traffic on the network. And the problem is often, where do I begin? There's many different factors that need to be taken into consideration. Do I have the right skill set for the transition? Can the network scale? Is performance adequate? Is it reliable enough to meet my surveillance needs? So it really creates an opportunity for you, our partners, to be able to assist in the transition. It creates opportunities to bundle new combinations of both networking and security services to meet customer-specific needs. Many services will relate to video surveillance, such as analytics, but also many of the services will relate to networking, such as, is the network ready to support video surveillance? How do you prioritize applications? So what is important is that the network is not holding you back. The network has to be an enabler of this transition, not a disabler. And unfortunately today, many existing IP networks are simply not ready for the transition. Problems are a lot more commonplace than you may think. Our customers talk about, for example, the daily practice where they arrive at work in the morning, and what do? They reset cameras. Or situations where they may need to pull up multiple monitoring streams concurrently and the network chokes. They don't see the video streams, there's delays, be it in seconds or minutes. And three of the biggest problems that customers are facing today when it comes to the network is one, lack of scalability. Many networks are unable to scale beyond 1,000 or so cameras. Secondly, instability and video loss. They pull up multiple screens at one time and that results in problems. And then thirdly is really the high level of complexity that's associated with provisioning IP video surveillance services. So why Avaya? Avaya Fabric Connect offers the best infrastructure for IP video surveillance. It delivers 10 times the scale, 3 times the performance, and 50 times faster reconvergence than what traditional IP networks can offer from vendors such as Cisco and HP and Juniper. If customers are going to invest big dollars for modern surveillance systems, it's really important that we provide a network that can meet their surveillance needs today and into the future. So what's different about Avaya's solution? Networks today can be characterized as complex, rigid, and not always stable. Moves, adds, and changes are generally looked upon with dread, as changing something can mean breaking something else. Services have to be provisioned end to end across the core and can be prone to error. Network failures can be very problematic and difficult to troubleshoot. Avaya is changing this to create simple networks that dramatically increase time to service and agility, and also dramatically increase network uptime. We are removing networking as a bottleneck to having IT agility and ensuring that the network is as agile as the current application environment. Fabric Connect represents a brand new way to build networks. It's completely unique in the industry. There is no one else out there who can do what we can do. It's a technology that is truly revolutionizing networking. Many of our own internal engineers were blown away with this technology. People who have been designing and building networks for 30 years simply could not believe how simple the technology is. Customer network designs that used to take weeks now take minutes. So it really is a huge leap forward in terms of advancing networking. So I apologize in advance for the busyness of this slide, but what it illustrates perfectly is that the complexity you see on the top diagram with current IP networks is exactly the complexity that our customers are facing in the networks today. The huge suite of protocols in today's networks is the root cause of this problem. And the bottom diagram, Avaya Fabric Connect, fixes this. It eliminates all the layers and protocols while still enabling all the capabilities you need. Layer 2 services, Layer 3 services, routing and multicast services, but it's now a single technology. It's not overlay of a number of protocols. Also, instead of having to provision hop by hop, which is time consuming and error prone, the core of the network is essentially invisible. You only need to provision services at the edge only. You build the core one time and then you don't touch it. And this is of huge value to our customers because a configuration error in the core can be catastrophic. It can impact multiple applications and multiple users. So really, the difference between Fabric Connect is that networking does not have to be as complex as it's been in the past. What benefits does Fabric Connect bring to video surveillance? First, simplicity. Fabric Connect is simple. Rather than a complex protocol overlay, it offers a single protocol, meaning it's significantly easier to design and deploy your network. Provisioning only needs to be done at the edge, and there's no need to touch the core. Recovery. It also offers sub-second network reconvergence versus reconvergence in minutes or hours. What does this mean? It means the video footage is always available. And this is something we've really seen in our customer deployments, and some of our camera vendor partners could not believe how quickly our solution could recover from failure. In lab scenarios where engineers would cut links, generally with traditional switches, and especially in multicast scenarios, there'd be lapses in video and the network would freeze. With Avaya Fabric Connect, links and nodes can be taken out of service without any impact to the video application. Scale is another big value. We've seen customers who have cameras sitting and not working because they exceed the capacity of the network. Fabric Connect can support tens of thousands of streams easily. Performance. In many networks today, when a network event occurs, you see CPU spikes and often sessions may drop. Not with Fabric Connect. It offers predictable performance that eliminates those CPU spikes. And finally, security. If the industry is truly going to evolve to where video surveillance traffic is supported in the IT network alongside other applications, security has to be locked down for the critical surveillance traffic. And this is something that's difficult to do today, particularly in traditional multicast environments. Not a problem with Fabric Connect. It can set up secure zones across a backbone easily, at the edge only, and with only 2 lines of command. The zone can create a secure and isolated environment for video surveillance network that is completely separate from all other corporate backbone traffic. And a great benefit of Fabric Connect is that it's one solution. Fabric Connect addresses all requirements and deployment scenarios. So whether you have a customer who is small or large, whether they have IP cameras or a combination of IP cameras and analog, whether their requirement is for a standalone IP network or an integrated network, whether they're considering video surveillance as a service, Fabric Connect truly provides the one-stop shop solution for video surveillance. So now let's look at some real-life customer deployments. So the County of Santa Clara is a customer, obviously in California. They have a very advanced traffic operations center, approximately 430 surveillance cameras that monitor the traffic flows in expressways. They also have advanced analytic tools for traffic light management and synchronization. And in the event of an accident, people in their operations center would pull in multiple feeds simultaneously. And the problem they were faced with was that sometimes the feeds would populate in the camera wall and sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes they would experience delays in video streaming and sometimes they would actually lose footage. So in terms of what Avaya deployed, it was actually pretty easy. We replaced one switch in the core of the network. So by no means was it a rip and replace of the entire network. We replaced one of their core switches with Avaya's ERS 8800, and we left the edge in place. And all we did was we turned off the multiple protocols. We didn't have to reboot the switches. That one very simple core upgrade fixed their traffic surveillance system. After it, they were able to populate screens with no issues, cameras stayed connection, and as a result of these changes, they were able to actually improve the flow of traffic on the expressways. One relatively small change resulted in a pronounced improvement in the quality of their network, which has actually allowed them to provide a much better level of service to their citizens. So another example is in the gaming vertical, and there's huge opportunity for video surveillance in this vertical. So in this case, the customer had cameras in the casino as well as the parking lots, but the cameras weren't working due to the performance of their existing IP network. The cameras hadn't worked in months, and unfortunately there was an incident where there was one of the patrons robbed in the parking lot, and they didn't have surveillance data. So the customer was under a lot of pressure to be able to actually get the cameras up and running and also to be able to meet the requirements of the Gaming Commission. So Avaya's solution, we deployed our ERS 8800s in the core, our ERS 4800s at the edge, and very quickly the cameras were operational. We were able to make the cameras perform like they should perform and meet the requirements set by the Gaming Commission. So this is a great example of a customer who had invested in IP video surveillance equipment, but that investment had got them nowhere because of the network. So again, the importance of the underlying network is key in being able to offer sort of a high level of video surveillance performance. So if all this sounds too good to be true, let's look at some quotes from a leading network architect who has spent a lot of time testing our solution. And one of the interesting things that they found in their testing was just how good our performance is. And one of the examples they actually gave was a scenario where you have a critical event like a prison breakout, and a guard might need to hit a panic button to populate a video wall with hundreds of video streams simultaneously. And it is exactly this type of scenario that can bring a network to its knees. In big core switches, the architect would typically see close to 100% CPU utilization due to, all sort of the multicast registration messages. With Avaya, we eliminate these messages. So even during critical events, when you need your video streams the most, the network can easily handle it. With Avaya's Fabric Connect solution, the architect never saw the CPU rise above 6%. So this is massive. And they actually called out our technology as a revolutionary change, both in performance and in the simplicity of deployment. And the benefit of Fabric Connect extends much beyond video surveillance. As I mentioned, one of the key values of Fabric Connect is in its simplicity and speed of deployment. And InteropNet is a great proof point of this in action. Interop is one of the premier networking events globally. 2 years ago, Vendor A provided the backbone for Interop. They sent 20 engineers to hot stage and still had numerous issues. Last year, Vendor B provided the backbone and they sent 25 engineers to hot stage. So each year, the vendor who's responsible for the backbone typically sends 20 to 30 engineers to hot stage it. Avaya did the backbone this year. We sent 3 engineers to hot stage it and got the backbone up and working flawlessly ahead of schedule. So this is really a huge proof point to the simplicity and speed of deployment of a Fabric Connect technology. And another great proof point is Avaya was selected as the networking vendor for the Sochi Winter Games in 2014. What is the backbone for the network? Avaya's Fabric Connect solution. So in conclusion, I hope this session has given you all an appreciation for the huge transition that is currently taking place in the video surveillance market. The time to capitalize on the opportunity is definitely now. The next decision phase is starting. Customers are no longer asking why IP. They are already sold in the benefits of IP surveillance cameras. Certainly in 2013, the focus was on which IP camera should I choose. We believe that the conversation in 2014 will be which IP network. Customers, they're sold an IP, they know which IP cameras they want. The next consideration, the next big thing that they will be thinking about is which IP network will be able to give me the best performance for my IP video surveillance traffic. And as you heard in this session, IP video surveillance is only as good as the IP network that it runs over. Avaya Fabric Connect offers the best solution. So thank you for attending the session. I hope it's been useful and happy selling.